I am the second of two children. My parents had great academic dreams. They had academic potential, but they weren't able to realize their potential to the fullest. So they created for us an environment that facilitated learning. And out of that environment, my sister and I from the early days would do little experiments around the house, growing plants. We had encyclopedias at home, and she would be looking through, and we'd be looking at the heart and things like that. When I really became interested in science, so was in high school, going further in biology especially sparked my interest in sciences. But at that time, I thought that if you did the sciences, you had to do medicine. And so my focus was on medicine. It wasn't until I got to the University of the West Indies that it became apparent that there were careers that, I knew nothing about, that, I would be interested in. So I became more and more interested in a career path in the sciences. And when I started doing biochemistry in my second year on campus, to a certain extent, it was all over bar the shouting. I really enjoyed it, and I pursued it. And after finishing my undergraduate work, I then proceeded to do a Master of Philosophy in biochemistry. And while doing that, I worked with pathogenic organisms, so they're the organisms that cause disease, and I was fascinated by them. So I then moved on from the University of the West Indies, Mona, to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, where I did a PhD in medical microbiology. So I started off thinking I was going to go straight into medicine, but finding other things along the way that really captivated me, I found myself now in an ever unfolding career in the sciences. After I finished my studies in Scotland, I came back to Jamaica and I worked for a brief stint in industry. While in industry, I became aware of the fact that the ingredients, the components that you put into any product really have a marked effect on the bottom line. And I became aware that there were some components that we would like to incorporate in our products in Jamaica, but they were just so expensive. And in order not to have to pass on that expense to the consumer, we were using some of the substitutes. And it bothered me because the substitutes that we were using were not in all case performing the way the main ingredient, xanthan gum, would have performed. Xanthan is a stabilizer, an emulsifier, a thickening agent. If you, for example, have salad dressing, you want to see all the particles in the salad dressing suspended. You don't want to see a salad dressing, clear fluid, and some pieces at the bottom. My work with the Ministry of Health started in 2008 when I came to the National Laboratory Services on secondment to become the new director of immunology. As a director of immunology, I I had the pleasure, the satisfaction really of working a lot with HIV/AIDS because a lot of the services offered by the immunology unit, which I headed, were to do with the provision of services for the management of HIV/AIDS. So I was involved in the development of the HIV testing algorithm. Before I joined the ministry, HIV testing was centralized at the National Public Health Lab, which meant that samples from all over the country had to come to the National Public Health Lab for testing. And you can imagine that there would have been delays. And so there was the thrust for the development of an HIV field testing algorithm. In other words, there was development of a process that would allow testing for HIV to take place at the point of care where you are actually contacting the individuals, and only send to the National Public Health Laboratory samples that you needed to have confirmed because they did not give you a definite answer, or samples that were coming for us to have some quality assurance of the processes that were being used in the field. And I just want to point out, for those who may think that this has been all about COVID, in developing systems for the testing of COVID, we have been able to increase the laboratory capacity for testing that will be able to allow us to test other agents that may be of significance in the future. So we have enhanced our capacity for the testing of new and emerging pathogenic organisms. So we think about all the things that COVID has done that we wish it hadn't done. But let us also be aware that through the opportunities for development of the laboratory service for COVID testing, we are now in a better position to test any new and emerging pathogen which may come our way. Thanks.